Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. We are filming this on a Thursday morning in South Africa in our public holiday, so finally no late night filming for us. Um, this is episode 54, guys. Please don't forget to like, subscribe. We have a pretty interesting pod today. We're going to talk about some law changes that could happen. We're going to talk about Rassi's comments towards Diamani. And we're going to talk about how the French coach has said something that may annoy some Safa fans and other fans around the world for that matter. There is no Brett Burns today. He is on rugby tour with his team that he coaches. But Casual Bias, how are you doing? Feeling good?
All good. We spoke about last night what time we're gonna do the podcast and stuff, and Brevon mentioned the topic, and I was like, I haven't read any of it. I don't stay up to date so much with the news of it all. So all of the stuff that he's mentioning is gonna be literally so unscripted reactions. It's literally gonna be sit down, hear it for the first time, and you're gonna get the initial reaction. But as
Yeah.
Brevon said, please remember to like and subscribe. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. Brevon, I know Brett's not here, so we can do it. Without any further ado, let's get into it.
No, absolutely. So we're going to start off with World Rugby trying to introduce some new laws to the game. And a lot of people are thinking that these laws might be aimed towards the Springboks. Now, look, I'm not going to be that guy that says, World Rugby hates us. And I do, however, think World Rugby lacks accountability. But a lot of people think that these laws are going to impact the Springboks quite a bit. And we'll start off with like the main one, the one that really could impact how the Springboks take set pieces forward, and that is the two that are a maul. When a maul is set, is from a line out or a general play, usually we have the situation where the ref says use it once, and if there's no movement forward, then he says use it twice, and you have to use it. Now, World Rugby are trying to encourage Super Rugby URC to use laws that say once the maul is stopped the first time, you have to use the ball. I don't know about you, but I think it doesn't make sense because sometimes it takes that second shove to really get a maul going. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, you kind of hardly ever see a maul going forward from the get go, right? Because usually when it goes forward from the get go, it means the team defending the maul did something wrong. Like usually when the jumper goes down and both teams crash into each other, it's going to stop. And then it's used at once and then they start pushing forward. So I just think, excuse me, that is super unnecessary. I don't see the point in it at all. It's not any team is really abusing the maul. You can say, yeah, South Africa loves the maul. Look at how many maul tries the Irish score. How many tries have Dan Sheehan scored from the maul? How many tries do the French score from the maul? Look at the All Blacks. They love the maul as well. It's not something that people are abusing and just forming a maul in the middle of the pitch. Yeah, you get it here and there. I can
Mm.
understand you don't want to maul from, let's say, from the ruck. You pass it like we did in the World Cup final in 2019 against England to win a penalty where they collapsed it. I can understand if you remove that, but from a line out, like let the boys maul. That is, they practice this day in day out. They practice the maul defense. Um, so that use it once has to stay there because it's always going to be have to called use it once because no maul really goes forward from the get go. That is
Yeah,
absolutely silly. I think it's brain
yeah.
dead, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even feel like that's the most silly one that they've suggested. And I'm not going to go through all the suggested law changes that they may want to trial, but two that really also stick out to me is, first of all, being allowed to call a mark off a kickoff. Now, personally, I think this is absolute nonsense because now, as we all know, we have someone called Damien Willemse who will chase down to the 22. He will contest out in the 22. We know he's very good at securing the ball when it's really needed inside their 22 off the kickoff. And now they want to call the mark. Obviously, this doesn't stop the contest, but at the same time, they're talking about wanting to speed the game up, but here they are enforcing something that will slow it down in a sense. And then the
Yeah,
second law is, sorry, just to add the next one is, they want to now exclude scrums from a free kick. So as we all know, our infamous scrum call when Damien Willemse called a mark, and he did this, and off a free kick, and we scrummed, and we won a penalty there. They now want to get rid of that. So when you get a free kick, no more. It's either tap and go and up and under. So I'm going to let you tell me what you think about those two laws that may be trialed. I think it's rubbish.
Yeah. Going off the first one, with the mark off the kickoff, I think that is absolutely ridiculous. As you said, talk about speeding up the game, but you want to have free kicks called off the mark. I think there is value in the coin toss in terms of when the captains call the toss, you win the toss. There's value in terms of saying which side you want to play to first and who's going to kick off first, because that can determine the start of the game. You don't want to. What's the point of the kickoff if you're going to kick off and they can just call a mark and kick it right back? You can just start the game with the tap and run from the halfway line. That is just stupid. So, and I think there's a skill in the kickoff. You can see many teams, they purposely kick to a certain player or a certain angle where they can really put pressure on you. You can't just give the other team relieving the pressure. That takes away the whole value, in my opinion, of the coin toss and saying, listen, we want to kick off there. Go ahead. It gives the opportunity to the team as well. Let's say the Boks just scored points against the All Blacks. The All Blacks get the kickoff. They get the chance to put the Boks under pressure again with the kickoff, kicking it deep, really rushing the kicker, not giving them an easy way out. So I don't understand the point of a mark being called. I've never felt the kickoff is an issue with the game. You want to kick the game off and then immediately have the whistle being blown. That is what I'm getting from it. Like you're talking about speeding the game up. Imagine the kickoff, kick, mark. How stupid is that? That is so stupid. Like, no, that rule will never be. I will never be in support of that rule. Just like let the boys run, and usually you get it like, let's say they kick to a big sturdy number 8, give him the ball and bash it right up, and then play the ball. Okay, that is, and usually that first heat shows you the intensity of what the game's going to be. Now imagine a kickoff and they just call mark. You don't get that initial heat. You don't get the crowd fired up. That is stupid. It's almost blasphemous. Okay, get that out of here. And then secondly, with the mark being called, I don't. No scrums being called. I don't think that is really. They won't make it as a rule. We are against South Africa. I don't think it's against South Africa. My opinion is they want to make it more like rugby league. If you want to watch rugby league, go watch rugby league. Stop being stupid. This is our game. This rule has been there all the time. You've always been able to call a scrum because you can run a set play from it. You can't really run a set play from a tap and go.
Or up and
exactly.
under.
Or you're supposed to kick an up and under. What the hell? Like the opportunity was there. The free kick was given to us. Could have been a penalty, but the free kick's given is usually a free kick and then a penalty. And you want to take away our scrum. That is literally like let the people run. You see all the other teams take a scrum because they want to run the ball.
Exactly.
The scrum isn't there to slow the game down. Like if you want to speed the game up, pause the timer for the scrum. Say, listen, when he says engage, then you start the timer.
Yeah.
Like we've spoken about that before. These 3-minute scrums are silly. Okay, I get what people mean with that. So stop the timer until he starts doing the calls, because people slow the game down. They purposefully don't engage properly the first time, get a free kick, they have to call or redo the scrum, and then it goes, and then it's like 3-4 minutes done. Okay, stop the timer, engage, timer goes. My opinion.
Yeah, look, because obviously, I mean, it's an article that I've read that suggests all these different law changes, and the headline is obviously it's an SA Rugby Mag article. Headline reads, "World Rugby trying to depower box scrum." Now, obviously, we know journalists they'll have their way with the way they word their title. I mean, it's just how all journalists are around the world. But I generally just think it will impact us, and I mean naturally it will, because I mean that's our strong point, and it's
Yeah,
not great
correct.
to see. But it will also impact. We know the Irish have a decent scrum. We know that all the All Blacks have a decent scrum. We know those two teams really tested us in the scrum there in the World Cup. So look, we're not the only ones that are going to be affected, and I just think, like you said, there are other ways to speed the game up than taking a completely different approach to it. So.
Yeah,
I just think, well,
obviously the titles are gonna be they trying to nullify South Africa because it is a strong point, as you mentioned, and it gets the clicks if you say that. Um, but I think overall it's just to speed the game up, and I think they're doing a horrible job in terms of speeding the game up. There's a lot of other things that we've already spoken of that can really speed the game up. Um, yeah, that's
yeah.
just my point.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, this isn't rugby league. If you want rugby league, go and watch rugby league. It's available. But this is rugby union. I mean, this is what we love. This is what we've supported since we were, I mean, just coming out of our mother's wombs. I mean, that's what we
Do you
love.
think some of it has to do with player safety that they want to kind of remove scrums from it?
Yeah, a lot of these new, and like I said, I'm not going to get into all of them. If you want, you guys can go and view all of them, and let us know your thoughts on some of them. But a lot of them have to do with neck rolls, croc out, or the croc roll clean out. As you know, sometimes a person doesn't clean out where they just go through the ruck. They'll take someone on their stomachs or their midsection and then roll them. That has now turned into something dangerous for World Rugby, so they want to try and phase that out. So look, I think at the end of the day, I think World Rugby is doing a bit of a terrible job in how they want to speed the game up and player safety, because a lot of it is interpretation,
Yeah.
and different referees interpret things differently. So it's just a mess at the moment. I think there needs to be a way that they find a lot more consistency. But I think we're going to leave the rules and the laws for now, because none
Yeah,
of it's actually happened.
just the final point. I think rugby's in a good place at the moment. I think the top 14 is interesting. The URC is interesting. You look at how beautiful the Super Rugby is. If you want to talk about law changes, I'm fine with talking about like the red cards thing, right? So you don't
Mm,
damage a team for the entire game for one guy. People need to understand rugby isn't your safest sport in the world. It is a contact sport. Like to remove anything that could cause any form of danger just makes it silly. It takes away the whole premise of the game. You know what you're signing up for to play rugby. You know your knees are in danger every now and again. You know you can get stamped on. You know there is going to be accidental head collisions, and just to like almost try and avoid all of these things makes that you're going to get more of it almost, if you get what I mean, especially with the
yeah.
high paced game that we're getting. You want to get that ball. You don't want to have New Zealand get quick ruck ball the whole time. So you want to do some naughty stuff in the ruck, and you're going to get blown for it. And trying to stop quick ruck ball and counter ruck, you're going to go into the collision um, a bit more dangerously and with a bit less technique. Trying to just bring in more rules and make it more complicated makes it more difficult for other people to get into the sport because they don't even know why there's a penalty being given. So
Mm,
I just feel like the neck roll is fine, but this croc roll, I've never seen a guy get injured because what? For his knees, there's a lot more
yeah.
dangerous things for the guy's knees than a croc roll. I mean,
Mm,
stop being stupid. This is not WWE where the guy gets hurt with a twister. Okay, his body isn't going to go twisting just because of that roll. So calm
yeah.
down, please. That's the only thing that I ask is like stop trying to change the rule or stop trying to change the game. Rather try and improve the game because what they're doing is changing the game instead of improving the game. You want to change the game, bring more stuff in that stops the clock where we can get more rugby. That is what we
Mm,
want in the end. If a guy has to kick to goal, stop the clock. Give him his kicking timer so he has to actually kick it quickly, but don't let the time run. Like it's
mm,
those sort of things that needs for improvement of the game. It doesn't change the game.
yeah. Look, at the end of the day, all we can do is really hope that World Rugby, realizes that some of these things just don't make sense. because at the end of the day, and I've heard many people say it, the guys making these calls are executives in suits rather than the people that are playing the game. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not a great look. But moving on, we're going to talk about some Springbok stuff now. It's not hot news, but it came out earlier this week that Rassie Erasmus basically just said that Daimani isn't really the full package yet to be involved with the Springbok setup. Now, look, I don't think he meant that in a way that Daimani will never get in. Because as we all know, Daimani with ball in hand is probably one of the most dangerous players on this planet. I mean, he is the back. I mean, he outplayed Ivan Roos to identify himself as that number 8,
Yeah.
and that's difficult to do because Ivan Roos is a great player. Many people think that Daimani should have been called up to the alignment camp. Now, look, there are more alignment camps. This isn't the end of the road for Daimani, but I think what Rassie's trying to say here is maybe off the ball, Daimani isn't there yet. Maybe his work rate isn't what Rassie wants. And look, I mean, we can all have our opinions. And look, I personally think Daimani has been sensational. Don't get me wrong, but I think there are areas where Daimani, well, every player, but especially when you're playing for the Boks, I think his off the ball work rate might need to improve a little bit more because, as we know in Springbok rugby, it's what you do off the ball as well that matters. I mean, we see that on defense when Cheslin Colby or Kurtley Arendse are making runs from the other side of the field to make tackles. I mean, that's the work rate they're looking for. So, what are your thoughts on Rassie saying that he's not the full package yet? Are you angry with that suggestion, or how are you seeing it?
I mean, not angry or disappointed because like we feel we've got a very, very talented player on our hands with Daimani, but we can't doubt Rassie's judgment. I had a good conversation with my father a little while ago where we spoke about Daimani, and he mentioned that Daimani isn't really the mold that Rassie usually goes for, right? If there was someone that has to be out for Daimani to come in, it would probably be like a Kwagga Smith. So you will see Daimani as like that Kwagga Smith replacement as an impact player from the bench, just because Daimani pretty much does everything. Like Daimani doesn't feel like a starter that we had in Siya Kolisi or Pieter Steph de Toy. Like his game is very different to what they used to offer. Now I see Daimani as a brilliant player for the Boks in certain games. Like I wouldn't see him as the best player going up for instance against teams that just trying to be physical like France or Ireland or for instance the old Wales. But I see Daimani being a good player when it comes to a high tempo game, playing against Australia, New Zealand, and Argentina. So that's where I find him almost perfect to play. So it's weird. The only thing that I kind of fear isn't that he never plays for the Boks. I'm just scared that those comments push him to say, listen, okay, then I don't care about playing for the Boks. I want to play overseas then. Where if he doesn't play for the Boks, I would still love him to play in South Africa for the Stormers. I think he's massive for the Stormers. I think the Stormers game fits him perfectly. I'm just a bit afraid that some of the boys that realize, okay, we can't play for the Boks, they go overseas and they go and showcase their talents over there. Not that they're going to play for an overseas team, just like you get what I mean.
Yeah.
And I really, really think this is the solid time, especially now South Africa. I don't know if most people have heard, but the Stormers or the Western Province Rugby has got a new sponsorship as well. I just want our franchise owners to put some more money and financing into our teams to actually keep our players. We are doing so well in the European competitions. I want there to be an incentive for our players to actually say, listen, we want you to stay. I don't want us to be like the Sharks and just buying the big names. But if we have a big name that we generated, like the likes of a Daimani, a Ivan Roos, and a Damian Willemse, where we can tell them, listen, we know you're going to get offers from outside. We will match that offer. You stay in your home country. You play for the Springboks. We want to keep you with our team. I'm not saying splash the bag on everyone. I'm not saying Courtney Laws has just retired from England. Let's go and buy Courtney Laws for our teams. Like, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying back our boys enough to keep them in South Africa. Like, I don't want the Springbok team being filled from all over the world. I don't have an issue with 5-6 players playing abroad and playing for South Africa, but I want the core group of the team to be our boys that we cheer on every single weekend. Because we can't, for instance, we're saying Damien de Allende is the best 12 in the world, but we don't see him at franchise level. We don't see him playing in Japan and stuff. And the same will happen for Daimani. We can't back Daimani to get a position at the Springboks if he plays abroad, because we don't watch. We watch the overseas competitions, but we don't follow it like it's our own teams. So I just really want some more investment into our teams to keep our players here, and I think that will motivate them enough to keep performing. Let's say motivate Daimani to keep performing and finally get that Bok call up. Because I don't think you should take Rassi's words too serious in terms of he's not the full mold yet. I think he's just missing a couple of things maybe here and there that Rassi has spotted, and then he will get his call up, because that's what he deserves. Like, Rassi isn't stupid. He can see Daimani is a standout player week in, week out for the Stormers. But Rassi has a good eye. Like, look how far ahead of the pack Evan Roos was. But when he played for the Boks, you could see he's lacking that experience. You could see he's missing just something. And Rassi spotted that from the start. That's why Dwayne Vermeulen was still there. That's why Jasper Wiese was still there, and Evan Roos wasn't. And I think this is the next step for Evan Roos. This is the next step for Daimani. He probably sees the same in Daimani and just wants him to work on some things. I'm sure you'll have some personal conversations with Daimani as well, or with Dobbers, to tell Daimani, listen, relax. This is what we want you to work on. Show us that, and you got your spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing with, like, if I look at Daimani, and this is just an opinion. I'm not saying what my opinion is the only one that stands. It's just that if I look at Daimani as an 8, I can never see him being picked for the Springboks as an 8, purely on the fact that he's not a Springbok 8. Now, that's not because I'm saying he's not good enough. I'm saying if you look at our 8s in the past, Spies, Vermeulen, Dani Rousseau, Jasper Wiese, we're looking at guys that are physically, that's what they don't do the flashy stuff. They physically defend and they physically attack. That's what they're there for. And a lot of them are also line-out generals as well. I mean, we know Vermeulen was, Dani Rousseau. So these guys, they're very versatile in that 8 position. But something that they're not is what Daimani is. And that's why I'm saying he doesn't fit that 8 mold. There's a conversation on, does he fit the Peter Steff role? There can be a conversation there. But I think once Daimani tweaks his off the ball work and his defense, I think he is definitely going to get that call up. And I look forward to it because he deserves it. I mean, he's been arguably the best South African franchise player in the URC so far.
Yeah.
There's definitely an argument there. So
it's weird. Like, he could be the standout player, but you feel, for instance, Cameron Hanekom suits the mold of being a South African 8 a lot better. Just with the way that we play with our 8s. I don't think it will be long before we see Cameron Hanekom in a Bok jersey getting his debut. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in this tour against Ireland from the bench. That's why I said, like, I would see Daimani more as an impact player from the bench, especially because he jumps in the line-out as well for the Stormers. So he pretty much does everything. His physicality kind of goes a bit under the radar, but I think he always makes his tackles. He's quick. He's elusive. So there's definitely a position for him. It's all just like what Rassi sees in him. So we don't have the answer to that, because Rassi obviously has a very different and better mind than us in terms of the game, but it won't be long before we see him.
Yeah, but like we've seen, I mean, the Stormers played against the Northampton Saints in a friendly, and Daimani was chucked on the wing and still put in a good performance off the bench. So, like you said, this could be
everyone as well.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a guy that, like you said, comes off the bench like a Quacker Smith. The only thing there is you lose a fetcher coming off the bench, which is it's a tough one. But like you said, Daimani brings so much more to the game as well. So, you will bring a lot more pace to the game. He will bring a lot more like flashiness to the game. I mean, if Daimani gets a break, not many people are catching him, and that's scary to say for a loose forward. So, yeah,
And if
I
you
mean,
catch him, you got to bring him down.
yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah, so look, I think Darmani will eventually get that call up. It was the same with Ivan Rus. He also got told by Rusty, look, there are things you need to work on. And as much as Ivan Rus has struggled, he's found his form. I mean, when he played against the Bulls, we saw him being one of the only Stormers players that put his hand up and just kept going. His physicality was there, his defense was there. So he's working on things. You see his discipline's getting better. And I think that's what Daimani will do. So, any final thoughts on what you think the future holds for Daimani?
I think the future holds a brilliant bot player one day.
Yeah,
I'm pretty strong
absolutely.
with that.
Yeah, well, moving on to the last topic of the pod. Obviously, look, I've lost casual there, so it's just me on my own. So yeah, guys, I think quickly what we're going to chat about is me being on my own here. We're going to chat about just how I don't know if anyone has seen the comments that the French coach has made talking about how refereeing decisions lost them the game against the Springboks in the quarterfinal. Now, you guys let me know what you think about that because at the end of the day, it's not a great look on rugby. I mean, World Rugby has been standing so high on referees and how they need to be protected and how they need to be how people can't comment on referees. But apparently in a Six Nations briefing, a referee briefing, Beno Keef apparently, according to the French coach, admitted that that he made mistakes and he wasn't happy with his performance. Now, if you're asking me, I think that's rubbish because no referee will ever go openly to a coach and say, listen, my performance was bad and you guys lost because of refereeing decisions. So at the end of the day, it's not a great look. I've been carrying this on my own. Be proud of me, man. But
Yeah,
I'll
my
bring up
apologies. My
the
laptop just randomly restarted.
no
I have no
stress.
idea.
No stress. But just to bring up the topic, the French coach basically, and sorry for the pronunciation, but I'm not the greatest pronouncer of words, but or names. But Fabien Galthie basically says that Beno Keef admitted in a Six Nations referee briefing that he wasn't happy with his World Cup quarterfinal performance when they played the Box. And I'm going to say some quotes of what he said. We lost the quarterfinal for rugby reasons, but also for refereeing decisions. We also spoke about it with Beno Keef during a recent meeting at World Rugby. And this is what Gaethje said at a post Six Nations media briefing. Another quote says, in a World Rugby committee, I therefore had the opportunity to speak with Beno Keef. At one point in the meeting, there was a discussion about the behavior of the selectors. I took the floor and said that we had a major role as educators and that we must behave with respect towards referees. Now, I'm going to get into why that is so hypocritical. He then goes on and says, this is fundamental. I told him that my players had been strongly impacted by questionable decisions. Everyone agreed on the fact that some decisions weren't the right ones, and he wasn't at all happy with his performance either. Now, he has just there said we need to protect referees. But what has he done? He's gone out there and called Beno Keef out and said that he himself has admitted that he had a terrible performance in the quarterfinal. And that is throwing a referee under the bus. Now, World Rugby sits here and they talk about the fact that we need to protect referees and not throw them under the bus. But he's very like a snake. He's been very slithery and sneaky here,
Yeah.
and he's gone and basically said, "Oh, but Ben also admitted that we lost because of, in his own little words, that we lost because of refereeing decisions as well." I can tell you now, Ben O'Keefe did not go up to him and say, "Listen, I had a bad performance in the quarterfinal." No referee is going to do that. I don't know what your thoughts on this are,
No,
but I think this is just more
he will
tears.
lose all credibility doing that, Beno Keef. And listen, it's just rubbish. I feel that people are trying to take away from South Africa winning the World Cup. like it's done and dusted, right? Like obviously, if you narrow down and analyze every ref's performance, you'll see mistakes everywhere. So he's most likely focusing on, for instance, Kwagga Smith with his hands over the ball, right, scooping that ball up. That happens so quickly. Any ref can miss that at any time. How many times have you seen a ref say the ball, he went over the ball, didn't support his body weight, and then scooped it back up when his hands went straight onto the ball? You see, mistakes are made both ways. And if Beno Keef said that, he's not going to mean it. Listen, I had a shocking game just towards France. He's going to mean it like I had a bad game overall, making decisions both sides. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think Galthie is being an absolute twat. He's being disgusting. Look at the way that the calls went to them in the Six Nations. You got to have some big balls to come out and speak about reffing decisions not going your way when you've had your first 3 games. No, 2 games, literally refereeing decisions win you that game. That is where a ref wins you the game. Where a kick should have been retaken for 3 different reasons, where the ref and everyone and all the cameras can see all of it, or a try being scored, you can see it's a try and it's not being rewarded or awarded, compared to a guy that's hands is over the ball. Like, what other decisions is he talking about? He's talking about a millisecond with Cheslin Colby. Well, how about you tell your kicker, listen, before our guy runs 40 meters, maybe kick the ball. I mean, it's not difficult, right? So how about he sits down, shuts his mouth, because they were horrific in the Six Nations. Okay, his team is horrific. His team is only good because of one player. I mean, how much of a shambles is that? We won the World Cup. We beat you in your hometown in the World Cup quarterfinal, the one where you were the favorites, without our main players, without a Malcolm Marx, without Andre Pollard for most of the game, without a Lucanio So not even 3 of our best players not playing, 3 of your best players playing at your own stadium, your own World Cup. You are the favorites. That's embarrassing for you. Sit down, shut your mouth, take off your stupid little glasses, okay, and go for a jog. Pipe down.
Yeah, I think it's pathetic because, like you said, this guy had the audacity to really how it's impacted his players. Now, don't get me wrong. Sure, it hurts to lose a quarterfinal in your home country,
I
but
hope it lost a lot. I hope it stings a bit more now.
Yeah, but get over it. I mean, look at Ireland. They got over their semi-final loss. There were some questionable calls by Wayne Barnes, according to Irish fans and some other fans. But guess what? Ireland got over it. They're not talking about it anymore. They got on with it and they won the Six Nations. What did France do? Arguably should have finished 4th or 5th because they robbed Italy and Scotland of a win. So look, he has no right to come out and say this. And first of all, that should be private. If he's having these conversations with Beno Keef, that should be private.
Fully agree. Yeah.
Absolutely. He should not be saying this to the media in a Six Nations briefing. It is it's classless. And like you said, you know, at the end of the day, if you would have won, if you were to win the game, you would have won the game against us. It's just as simple as that. There were no calls that were like, oh my word, like what the hell, like it was against Scotland and Italy. So at the end of the day,
another thing is like people might be saying, listen, we always say accountability. This is accountability. When we say accountability, we want a press conference with the ref where he can defend himself as well. He can explain the decision. How's Beno Keef going to defend himself here? Go on a separate interview addressing the comments. You understand? That just turns into chaos. Get an actual journalist to ask him, listen, okay, these calls were made today. It felt pretty obvious that the mistake was made there. Can you elaborate on that? That is accountability, not a coach coming out and saying, that's why we aren't supporting Rassie in his video, because we know you can't break down every ref's performance, right? So he has to be able to defend himself. And before people say, oh, it was so easy to aggravate the South African once again, people, let me just explain something to you, okay? And we can end the pod on this if you want to. The reason that we get so aggravated is because our country, outside of rugby, could be seen as a bit of a dump or shit show, a bit chaotic at moments. And rugby is the one thing that brings us all together. from all different perspectives of life, culture, race, religion, all those type of things. We all come together and support the Springboks. So for us to win the World Cup is absolutely massive. It might not look like that because we've won it so many times, but it's the one thing that brings out emotion out of each and every one of our people in this country. And for people to try and take away from it just because they think reffing decisions here and there, how about you give us some credit? Look at that massive video that Will Jordan came out and said, you have to put respect on a team that grinds it out to get that 1-point victories. We were never the favorites going into this World Cup. Before the World Cup, we got smashed by New Zealand at the Mount Smart Arena, and people were writing us off and saying New Zealand, Ireland, France. And then we kind of picked up some form at the end of it, but then we had that shaky performance against Ireland, and people didn't really talk about South Africa, right? Mm-hmm. And here we went and we won the World Cup. We defeated the favorites every single time, except we lost against Ireland. We're taking that loss on the chin. I know some people banter and say, listen, Ireland didn't deserve to win the game, or we lost it on purpose, but we lost the game. Okay, I'm not here to make excuses for it, but don't try and take away from the thing that brings our culture and our country together. We have so much things that separates us as people, but this is the one thing that brings us together. Look at the homecoming videos of the World Cup. So that's why I get aggravated when people say stuff like that, because they don't understand what it means to us as a nation. For the time period that there's still hype around it, where we are all together, we don't care about any of the other issues that we have in the country. That is what brings us together. So that's why I get aggravated with that, because it's absolutely ridiculous. He didn't even think when he said something like that, throwing Beno Keef under the bus like that, just saying anything to keep his job at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what he should be more focused on, is looking to keep your job, dude, because you may finish second in the Six Nations and your only good performance was against England. And arguably England if they were on another day, they were the good team that were going to win that game. And then you're really looking at him like, okay, is he the guy for this job? So yeah, pipe down. But at the end of the day, you're 100% correct. This is pride for us, and ending off this pod, the rugby is our pride. We have two sports. Obviously, we have Bafana, which is our football team that isn't. They've done us proud recently, of course, in the African Cup of Nations. But if there's really a sport that brings us all together because of the unity within the team, it's rugby. So we take a lot of pride in our rugby, and when people try and take things away from us, naturally we're going to defend our country, just like the Irish defend theirs, and rightfully so, just like the All Blacks defend theirs, and rightly so. So look, at the end of the day, I think World Rugby do need to look at this and say, look, this is not correct. Rassie was correctly banned, maybe for the amount of time. It's a questionable, but Rassie was correctly banned and when he made a video call, or not calling out the referee, but identifying things, and also kind of throwing Nick Berry under the bus. But if I look at this, it may not be a video, but it was at a media briefing, and he's thrown Beno Keef under the bus. So World Rugby need to look at this, and they need to start taking accountability for some of these coaches and players.
Exact same thing.
Coming out and absolutely shouting at refs. We saw with Johnny Sexton, and Sexton did get banned, and he served his ban, and I'm happy for the ban length. I'm not going to say it deserved any longer. I'm glad he got to play in his final World Cup. But I just think players and coaches need to start realizing that this is a game that, we can't just keep blaming refs, and we all want to talk about as Saffers. We love talking about the ref, but I think it's another thing to talk about the ref, and then there's another thing to throw a ref under the bus. And yeah. It's just, yeah. So I think ending it on that, thank you guys. Please remember to like, subscribe, leave your thoughts, and tell us if you agree, disagree. We love your feedback. We're not going to sit here and ask you to please praise us and just agree with everything we say. We want you to question us, tell us things that you may think we're wrong. And yeah, we appreciate your support, and we'll continue to provide this type of content along with other type of content as well. So we really appreciate you guys. And yeah, that's us for today. So we'll see you guys soon. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.